Hello and welcome to the Bible Connection Podcast, the show that provides commentary and encouragement as you work through your Bible reading plan. My name is Jordan Shermer, and today we are talking about the book of 3 John. As usual, we have guests on the podcast that have taken the time to study and answer our questions. This week we have John Steinke.
Hello there.
And Brandon Stooksbury.
This is our 76th episode. 76. That's a lot.
I don't even know what that number means in that context. This is our 5th episode tonight.
Yeah.
Hey, how many books of the Bible are there?
And I'm even struggling on that one. 60-something.
Yeah, 66. But there's been multiple episodes where we've broken a book into 2 parts. Psalms was 5 parts.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay, Brandon, you're leading this one. Are you ready to get started?
We'll see.
All right.
See if thanks for the rope. We'll see if I swing or hang myself on it.
Sounds good. Let's start with, what does it mean to be walking in truth?
So truth is a theme throughout the Gospel of John, 1 John, 2 John, aletheia. I think so much of this word that I named my daughter. My firstborn is named Alethea, which came from the word aletheia. And in John's Gospel, truth, walking in truth would be obeying the commandments. We looked at before in I think it was 1 John. I quoted Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 6 through 9, I believe, and walking in the commandments, loving the Lord, and loving the brothers. Right, through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, there is a lot in here. James as well, if we say that we love God, but yet we are not loving the brothers, the love of God is not in us. So one of the ways in which we can test ourselves, we can keep our brothers and sisters accountable to this in walking in truth is, what does it look like that we love the brothers? And, and we need to be real. I mean, I can think of examples, personal examples myself. I can think of people that I don't love well. And constantly be that light, that beacon of truth. I would say that.
John, anything to add?
No.
Okay, looking on down in the letter, it says that you will do well to send them on their journey.
I moved a microphone, I promise.
We're getting wild.
I can't make the noise again.
You will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. What does it mean to send someone on a journey in a manner worthy of God?
So when he's talking about this, he's talking about sending what we would call missionaries. Somebody is sent from the congregation out to another geographic location to share the good news. And what we need to make sure we're doing when we send people like that is we're sending them with the resources it takes to be successful. So, no, we don't need to be paying missionaries so they're buying Lamborghinis and having 5 new iPhones every single Christmas. However, we would be very unfaithful. We are not supplying them in a manner worthy of God when we are less faithful to them than the pagans would be. When we see how the Israelites were sent out of Egypt, they were sent eagerly with the gold and the cattle of the Egyptians. And if we're going to be sending fellow believers out from our communities and into exile, into these other communities to share the gospel, we need to make sure that they are sent with what they need to be. It's not the word comfortable that I would emphasize, but what they need to be faithful to their households. If a husband is sent out with his wife and his kids, they should not need to depend on the charity of the new city that they go to feed and to clothe their children. They shouldn't be having to visit a food pantry and go to Carm to put a sweater on their daughter because the church is the one that's supplying that for them. I am very comfortable with the man who goes by himself, ready to live in an extreme environment with little resources because that's what he knows he has signed up for. But it's the same thing. It's a different thing to understand that we're sending people into those environments without without being faithful to them and without supplying for their needs.
Yeah, and I would encourage the listener, as they're reading 3 John specifically, notice how at least John here, the elder, is not part of this congregation, but he's looking out for another congregation, and that that in from congregation, there's congregational love from one congregation to the other, right? And he's encouraging this other congregation to do this as they send out. And it's one of the things that I do love. There's things about the Southern Baptist Convention that I'm not a huge fan of, but one of the things that I'm a huge fan of is the International Mission Board. That we cooperate as churches to do this, to make sure that our missionaries, that they have the best health care, that their bills are paid, that they're not as they're going out, and their main focus as they go into these countries, and wherever they go, is not how am I going to put food on the table on the next. It's how am I going to reach this community that I'm in?
How am I going to bring the community into my house to eat at my table? That's
beautiful.
That's the
That's
position
beautiful.
we want them to be in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Worthy of God. Okay, moving on down in verse 9, John says that Diotrephes likes to put himself first and does not acknowledge their authority. What does this mean?
Yeah, so we don't know who Diotrephes is. His name literally means cherished by Zeus. That doesn't necessarily mean anything about his character. We see that there are good people who have pagan names. Silas is one. Silas is a good guy. I named my second born after Silas. But Diotrephes is we don't know. It could be that this is the person that he was writing to in 2 John, that he may be this Antichrist, and that he's being named in 3 John. We don't know. It's a possibility. But if you look at some of the things that's going on in this, we don't even know, is he an elder? Is he one of the pastors, or is he just a powerful person in the church? Is this church in his house? We don't know. What's going? Is he paying a lot of the bills? We don't know. But some of the things that's going on is what I find it interesting is he puts himself first. He does not acknowledge our authority. So in some sense, John, the elder here, has some sort of authority, cross-congregational authority, and Diotrephes is not submitting to that. He's also he's talking wicked nonsense against us. He refuses to welcome the brothers. Also stops those who want to, and puts them out of the church. So this and we talked about church discipline in the last podcast, but no one in a church has the power to put anyone out of the church. That is a congregational decision, right? To bring that person before the church. That's the last step in church discipline. But this person is taking it upon himself to do this, and this is huge. This is should not be being done. So,
wow. John, any thoughts on this guy?
Nothing more to add.
Okay. Further on, it says, John says, "Do not imitate evil, but imitate good." What does that look like?
Yeah, so we see here that it's probably in the language of imitating evil. He's probably in reference to Diotrephes being evil. Like don't imitate Diotrephes. We're given 2 other people. Gaius in verse 1, the elder to the beloved Gaius. Gaius may be one of the elders, may be a good example in the church. We don't know, but he is beloved, and that's giving us a key that is someone that we should be, that the church should be looking up to. And then also in verse 12, Demetrius has received the good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. So there's two people here that the church can, this congregation can look to and imitate these men. And within every congregation there should be someone. If you're a woman, Titus tells us that older women should be discipling younger women. Older men should be discipling younger men. A healthy church has a discipleship. I'm not saying it's a program with written rules, but it's a healthy church organically produces disciples. This happens. You should be able to look up to someone in your church, right, and look up to them and seek to put yourself under that person and see them as an example. Paul looked to Christ, imitated Christ, and what's interesting, in Paul's life, he is actually imitating Stephen, as in Stephen in his what he says in Acts chapter 7, I believe 7 and 8. He's actually, it says that his face shone like an angel, and what he's the imagery there is that he's basically following in the steps of Christ. He looks a lot like Christ, and Paul is doing the same thing. He's imitating Stephen, and then Paul tells the recipients of his letters imitate him, and that's just a natural thing within the churches, that we are to spot out those that we can put ourselves under and seek to be discipled by them, but also, let's just be honest, that there's going to be at times individuals that you don't want to. You shouldn't imitate.
So a little bit of help discerning who that might be if you don't have a clear image in mind in your local church, where it says whoever does good is from God and whoever does evil has not seen God. That seems to be the same pattern of writing that 1 John was using. And so I'd encourage you to go back to 1 John and just look throughout that text, all of the emphasis of the man who loves the Lord, the man who knows God, and use that as a litmus to see who you can be looking towards in your local church and who you can be imitating.
Any other thoughts on 3 John? All right. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Bible Connection podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to listen this week. We hope this podcast equips and encourages you as you read. We are all excited to study and read the book of Jude. In the meantime, leave a comment on YouTube if you have any questions. I hope you have a blessed day.